Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Cross Commission Podcast. My name is Saif Fakadu. On the other line with me is Jake Nazar. Jake, made it through the first weekend. Looking forward to the money round, as always. One of our favorite times of the year, besides obviously Final Four. How you been, man?
Maybe even more favorite.
Well, yeah. I guess I was kind of alluding to doing our live show. Like, it is literally like once you're in the Final Four, it's obviously exciting. But I think it's the week, of everyone praising you after you won the, money round. Like once you're those four teams, that whole weekend's such a blur, and really the only people remember is the team that won on Monday. So you don't even if you win your semifinal game, in Foxborough, you almost don't get to savor it if you don't win it, on Monday. So
yeah.
But yeah, this is what the coaches, preach preseason and off season. Hey, kind of Foxborough, Philly, or wherever it's located. But yeah, getting to the Final Four. So obviously, getting to the tournament is important in winning the your first round game, but the Elite Eight is just the highest of stakes. Besides actually getting to the final rounds.
Yeah, this is. I mean, I was thinking about this because, going to do what everyone loves is hearing podcasters and media talk about themselves. I was thinking about this because we haven't done one of these like regular pods in a while. Everything we do is podcasting, but I feel like we haven't done one of these in like 3 weeks. So
yeah, I mean,
we did one before the last weekend of the
Sunday.
regular season.
Yeah, right.
We've done we done a bunch of live shows, but like I'm talking about like this.
Well, I was gonna say, yeah, but didn't we do that preview-ish of before Selection Sunday, or did we not pod that?
No, we didn't pod that week. So the last one was before the end of the regular season. I think we have Mark on. I think.
Yeah.
Bracketology. I think that was the last one we did. So like this is we do the Final Four preview next week. That's really it, because that Final Four weekend just goes. Yeah, you're right. It moves so quickly. In a lot of ways, you're correct. There's one winner out of that weekend. If you win the semifinal but then lose the championship, you're still going home upset. You don't necessarily feel a lot better than the team that won the semifinal, even if you did or lost the semifinal rather. It's still you still end your season with a loss. And then the come down from that is very kind of deflating because there's no games for 9 months or whatever it might be. But we're still on the up here. We're still on. And this week, I was thinking we should do like a segment at some point, our favorite quarterfinal memories in games, because there's been some great ones just in the last. I mean, even just this decade, there's been several. But you go further back, there's been some real. I would say it's probably more consistently reliable than the Final Four in terms of producing great games. Final Four can be very hit or miss. The semifinals are usually, I would say, generally pretty good. Not always, but generally. I mean, last year they weren't. 2023 they were. You were there.
Yeah.
In Philly, that was one of the best Final Fours. Just the Saturday ever.
I need to bring it up, but yeah, 2016. That was phenomenal.
2016. I would say 2016
weekend. Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably the best. Aside from, I'm trying to think of the other ones. 04, pretty good. 05. That's
2022 was good. Like, I mean, there was Princeton and Maryland's a war. Cornell, because it was a bit of a breeze, but the championship. You've seen Maryland like having to survive. It's like the last scene of a horror movie. Like
2017 wasn't bad. Towson, Ohio State was pretty close. I mean, yeah. For me, it was great, but that Maryland Denver game, of course, the after effects of that, the Maryland Denver game, we get the dive rule. So important, influential. 2019, that Virginia Duke game was great. But after that was a little. Yeah.
2021 was, last second shot by Lou.
Yes, the Maryland Duke game was such a blowout that it dragged us down a little bit. But that Carolina Virginia game went to the wire, and then the Maryland Virginia game was sensational. But yeah, maybe we'll do that at the end. Favorite quarterfinal games, memories, because there's the 21 quarterfinals were incredible. Virginia Georgetown again, if nothing else, memorable. We reference that on the podcast about like twice a year. Rutgers Carolina, man, that Rutgers Carolina game was something else. And then the 2-1.
Off Virginia last year. I mean, again,
I was there. Yes, I was there. I was there for that one. Hopkins Virginia was incredible. Syracuse Denver was very dramatic in the fourth quarter. And I guess this is where we'll mention that we will be on site for the quarterfinals this weekend. Ryan will be at Hofstra because, I mean, how could he not be? It's Syracuse and Princeton at Hofstra. I will be at Annapolis for Notre Dame Penn State, which I'm very excited for. And then obviously Maryland and Georgetown. So weather looks great, at least for Annapolis on Sunday. I don't know about Hofstra. I think it'll be good. But I think we're going to have all right, I'll go here. 2 top 10 quarterfinal crowds ever.
This weekend?
This weekend. I don't know about top 5 because the top 5 is that's some big numbers to crack. But if we look at the top 10, Patrick Stevens always tweets this out, quarterfinal weekend. The attendance numbers, like the all-time attendance numbers going back. Years and years. Here we go. All right. The top 5. I don't know if we can do this. Maybe. Hofstra, I think, has potential.
I'm going to send it to you. It's really insane. Some recent references Amazon. Amazon News has men's lacrosse attendance record since 2024.
Yeah, Stevens has it. Helix has it all. I just search up his Twitter. The all-time record is 17,000 at Navy in 2008. I don't think we're ever topping that one unless we get that. That year had Hopkins and Navy in Annapolis and Maryland and Virginia, which is about as just significant as you could get it. The all-time Hofstra record is 2014. That's the infamous Albany Notre Dame game. 13,519. Fourth is Hofstra 2011. That was Cornell, Virginia, and Hopkins in Denver. Sorry, Zave. 13,447. And then 2012 was Navy. That was Maryland Hopkins at Annapolis. And Loyola was also there. That was 13,390. So that's the top 5. I don't know if we'll get there. Hofstra, maybe. You got Syracuse, Princeton, and Cornell. I mean, you got about as good of a trio there. Richmond as well. I'm sure the Spiders will be in voice. But that's about as big as it gets. The top 10, though, is Navy 2009 at 12,142. That's our cutoff. I think that's possible. 2023 in Navy, they did 13,354. And you had Hopkins there against Notre Dame and Penn State against Army. So, sometimes. But Maryland, Georgetown, Notre Dame, Penn State. I think they could get to 13-3. I'm going to be safe and say we're going to get top 10 numbers. I think we're going to do over 12,000 for both quarterfinals.
Well, in the favor of at least 13K, the weather in Annapolis is going to be lovely.
Oh, beautiful.
If anything, maybe a tad warm at 83. Weather in Long Island could be a little sketch, but I've lived in the Northeast. That's up here, it could rain for a bit, and then it's not that bad, so it's kind of manageable. But I think that plus the teams comprising this. That one you got in 2023, so it's kind of recent. So it's not like all these records are a decade old, that they haven't gotten close to 13,000 recently. So you got Notre Dame that's going to be in attendance against Penn State as well. You don't have Hopkins, but you do have Maryland, the
Yes.
home state team, and its own, littered in these quarterfinals. If you look at, what they produce, and Georgetown, not the biggest fan base, but they did seem to travel a little bit to the Duke game. It's going to be much closer than,
it's right there. You'll get people turning out just because it's right there.
They got the house, they go over to the house for the weekend, make it a whole thing, have a barbecue back home. It'll be like the scene in Wedding Crashers, Come back,
The Catalina
Walking was like, come back, we got a thing on us. Come on, we got a couple rooms for you to stay. It's gonna be lovely. No, I think you're gonna touch it at least 13. I think, especially with the Maryland part, because if you look at every game above that 2023 game, like Maryland is somebody. Maryland's involved. Like the highest the number. Some of the locations are great. Foxborough, 2011. Remember that they had that? Gillette, Mile High Stadium. I remember that. 2015. Yeah.
I remember Foxborough. That was where it all started for Maryland. 2011. Then 2015 out in Denver. That was the year Denver was in it. Remember that one. Trying to look at some of these other ones. Brown, 2016, 11,000. Brown was there, of course. Chris had a lot of issues, I think, with the trek up the steps at at Brown Stadium.
Yeah, a lot of points to say. Yeah.
It always seems to rain at Hofstra for the quarterfinals. I don't know what it is. I guess it's just, New York, the Northeast this time of year, but it's kind of crazy how often that happens.
Wait, so 2016, that was it. Annapolis, right?
No, 2016 was Brown. Was it Brown? Navy played Brown at Brown.
What was the Cuse Maryland Elite Eight game? You remember?
There were two, 2011 or 2011 was Foxborough.
The more recent one, I think it's
2016. That was a Brown.
That was okay. I thought for some reason that was like Annapolis and stuff.
No,
I just remember someone trash talking that game, like between Cuse and Maryland fans. Like
Annapolis was 2023, and then I think before that it was 2018, which did, I guess, not a good number because it's not on.
I was kind of surprised 2016 Brown wasn't that.
No, sorry, 2018 Navy did a great number, 13,047. That had Maryland, Cornell, and Hopkins Notre Dame. No, Hopkins Duke rather. Hopkins Duke. That was 2018. So yeah, Navy always shows out. And
you got a Notre Dame team where fans travel, and this is a chance to make that third straight Final Four. So I think they're going to do really well this weekend, and definitely in Annapolis. And I think just potentially the teams involved in Long Island, despite the weather, like 10, 12,000.
I'm hoping.
They're getting Ryan out of the house. It's like it's an event for the island. So
Ryan better just start texting his friends. Just
Ryan and Danowski.
If Syracuse wins, I need Ryan to go live. I need to
put it on and just finger in the air like Jose, just running down. Boy, he did it.
I just need Ryan to start interviewing people on the street, just random people. Maybe runs into someone famous. That'd be good. Yeah, I think 12,000 is kind of my target number. Last year at Hofstra was 9,000. It was raining. And it also didn't have a local line. It was Notre Dame, Georgetown, and Maryland Duke. It was 7th out of 14 quarterfinals at Hofstra. Hofstra a little. I mean, they have done it so. The thing with Hofstra is they have done it so often. That's always my worry is that they've kind of maybe squeezed a lot of juice. But this year, it's like, I mean, it's Cuse Princeton. Like, Cuse there. Like, Cuse is there. You know, it's always the X factor.
What do you think? What do you think tickets are going for, Jake?
Too much, $30. I paid like 27, I think, in Annapolis.
Right, 30 on the island, 40 for reserve check-out. Parking, I bet you that's what they did. Yeah, parking pass, $20. So
$20.
parking pass will be available for purchase at the event for $30. That's capitalism. That's capitalism 101.
Jesus. What a racket, dude. Yeah, the NCAA. I mean, just. Oh, what can you say?
I mean, besides basketball, it is this is their biggest championship tournament.
Yeah, it's the only
with the decline. Like,
it's the only one played in a football stadium. They still get. I mean, they get 30,000 out of that thing every year, aside from East Hartford. But listen, as we say, true East Hartford never been tried.
Exactly.
2026, you're coming back.
Can't go. Yeah, give him a real shot. Yeah, give him a shot.
I love looking at the future dates and sites, and it's out through 2028, except for the 2026 championship, which is still TBD.
They know they're coming back. They're gonna just say like
we are 10 days from the 2025 championship, and they have not yet announced where the Final Four is next year.
Oh, there she is. There it is.
Oh,
star.
Hi, buddy. How you doing? Okay, I hear you. You got up here.
She's like, no comment.
Where do you think it's going to be held? There you go. So,
she's like, run it back. Yeah, give him a shot.
Gray wants to give East Hartford a shot.
Give me.
It was very gray that weekend at East Hartford. 2025, Annapolis, Hempstead, we're at Foxborough. 2026, the quarterfinals next year are at Hempstead and Newark in Delaware. Delaware I haven't hosted in a minute, but usually a pretty good location. 2027 is at Annapolis, and we're going back to Brown. Championship is in Philly. And then 2028 is at Hempstead and Richmond. The Spider's Web, Robin Stadium.
It's a beautiful, beautiful place.
Yeah, I mean, with Richmond, the way Richmond's going, maybe the Spiders will be there. And then the championship will be at Foxborough. So I don't know. We'll see. I still think I'm going to put my money down for Rutgers or Maryland next year.
Oh, yeah.
I just think, where can they do it? Where has the location that's hosted it or has hosted these kind of events and can do it on short notice? Like, there's not an NFL stadium because Baltimore, I believe, is being used as a training site for the World Cup. Maybe not. It might not be. So Baltimore maybe, but I don't know if Baltimore. I mean, look, I just feel like if Baltimore was going to do it, they would have announced it. Because I mean, they would take Baltimore any day of the week. But so my gut is that it's going to be at one of those two, and I don't think they're going to. The NCAA isn't going to try something new on a year's notice.
I was always think Carolina somewhere, Cary or somewhere, Charlotte.
Is the football stadium in Charlotte's never hosted it. I guess if they want to, I think the NCAA probably would say yes.
I would. The thing in the figure, I was like, if the year that they could use the excuse of the Olympic of the World Cup, like, hey, we gotta, something that they were percolating. Maybe it was like not enough, but like if we're going to try it, let's try it this year. That's a year we almost a mulligan. Like if we can't find anything in the Northeast that we would normally have for the Final Four, and we're thinking about moving it around, like this would be a year to try to experiment. But I feel maybe a college stadium like steps up and takes it.
Yeah, that's just my gut. 2024 FIFA World Cup training sites, base camps. Greensboro and Chapel Hill are on there, I think, as possible this game. So I don't know. Yeah, like the available for teams to like make up their base next year for the World Cup is
Anything Stadium? If they win this year,
Greensboro and Chapel Hill. So
their teams should step up if they win this year.
yeah,
Since the board beat.
yeah, might as well. Yeah. So somebody mentioned in the when me and Ryan were doing the show on last Friday, mentioned Snapdragon out in San Diego, and I think that's an interesting location to try. They did a good job for the World. I just don't think they're going to do it on like again a year. Maybe you're right. Like, hey, it's just a mulligan, whatever. I just don't. The NCAA doesn't. The NCAA being like displaying innovation or ingenuity and be like, we're going to try something new. It just doesn't seem likely. But the Snapdragon one's interesting. It did a good job for the World Championship. It's like the perfect Final Four venue size. It seats 35,000, I think.
Yeah, same size.
It's perfect.
Nice size.
I think that. I mean, it's tricky. My thing I've mentioned is I think the Final Four should be and the quarterfinals should always be held at areas that are easy to travel. I think if you want to I think more events like we saw this year with Maryland, Notre Dame, and Atlanta and stuff like that. I think that's awesome. You want to play a regular season game in San Diego? I mean, they did it before. They did it in California before. Or you want to play some in Texas, or do you want to do it in Atlanta or whatever? Hell yeah, man, have at it. Get people there. But what's going to be easiest for fans to travel is this north area. Charlotte's maybe it's pushing it a bit, but you do have North Carolina, Duke, Virginia. I mean, Charlottesville to there is still a bit of a hike. But yeah, these are the locations. Obviously, it'd be better if you could get more of them involved. So, like MetLife or M&T Bank, because then you'd have 4. You could just rotate between those 4. But alas, this is what it is. But that's my view. So I'm not inherently against trying something for a year, but I just think getting people to go out to San Diego or anywhere, Denver even. Like Denver did a good job with the quarterfinals, but it's getting people to go out to Denver for the quarterfinals is tricky. So we'll see. We'll see what they do. All right, Safe. It's time to bury our dead. Pay our respects. So, Safe, your bracket.
It was doing so good, sir. It was doing. I was with. I didn't brag. I did it right. I kept it quiet. We just talked about it with us. It's still like I'm looking at now, Jake. I think you're like 5th overall.
I'm cooking.
Ninth overall, but tied for 2nd. Not your 9 people.
I got every game right except for the I picked Siena over Albany. More than that, I went 8-0 last. I went 8-0 last weekend.
I don't know if that JP got this, but he's 4 people. It's like a perfect bracket right now.
Does Ryan have one?
Yeah, Ryan's with me. We're have 23 total points, so we're like 2 points behind you, but I took a big hit.
Yeah, I think you're going to take a big hit in the future with each passing weekend.
I think it's going to be great because like the 3 that I have for Final Four could conceivably make it. Princeton, it's the only outlier with like Joy Cuse's play maybe with face off that catches up to the Tigers. But yeah, Maryland in the title game, Ohio State losing, devastated. Absolutely devastated. But
if Maryland wins the title, I'll give you an honorary. I mean, maybe not. I don't know. You did. Look, as you say, water covers 2/3 the earth. John Tillman covers the rest.
That's it.
But you did pick Ohio State over them, so But I might let you on the bus. Like the
I was waiting for the pick 'em, and also I was like, if they're gonna win, that was gonna be the one. But
if Maryland wins, Maryland wins, I might be like, I might tell the bus driver, hey, slow down, let him get on.
I don't know. You saw it with the Buckeyes, the
Yeah,
post-mortem.
Ohio State. You're a national champion pick. I'm
Still,
gonna get. I'm
still
gonna
a
get.
tough beat to get Notre Dame.
I don't care.
So I no, I mean,
15.
what I felt something happening was when they got up 3-1. In my mind, I was like, I bet you Myers is like, I'm fine with this going into halftime.
That
And then they got the penalty. Notre Dame scored, and then almost immediately thereafter scored, and it was just like as much effort as Ohio State expended to get that lead, and you could feel the emotion in the stadium, like there were, and then Notre Dame just is being able to, the closing speed or being able to like catch up quickly, the quick strike capability of them, and I think it is, bad day at the face-off for them, and it just like unraveled, and it was like still within grasp at halftime. I felt like
they scored the first goal out of the half. It was
yeah,
7-5, and then Notre Dame. Notre Dame just had a different gear.
I think we were talking about it with the little bit with the North Carolina Richmond, a little bit with the Georgetown Duke game. Like, yeah, the road team is quote unquote an underdog, or the unseeded and stuff like that. But they had more experience. I mean, not Duke so much, but there was a young squad that they weren't the same Duke team that had made the Final Fours during the O'Neal run. So it was definitely a different. People were just in positions that they weren't in before. So you could definitely say, North Carolina,
Definitely.
and Ohio State as well. Even though they, 2023 they were in, like it's just still like a new, and it's just like the two-time defending champion who probably. I don't know if like maybe we're going to start seeing this more, because you said that about like the emotional build up to the games that I think you always would rather play at home. I'm not stupid. I was going to say something like, but I think the road team is just being able to just like, hey, this is a business trip. Let's focus. It's just like kind of us. Like, you don't got to worry about, the fam coming in, the uncle and stuff like that. So it's like, I don't know. And I think like as the teams in the tournament are like more evenly matched, like we're going to, I think, see this more. Unless you're like a 1 or 2 seed, even they aren't completely safe at times, that like it's going to be kind of a dogfight going forward, regardless if you're the seeded team in the first round.
I mean, like look, these at the end of the day, we're going through. I mean, the 3 seed Princeton played an excellent game. All hats off to him. Notre Dame, Ohio State. Was there really much separating these teams? No. Ohio State played great lacrosse for a while there. They have been, but it's the number 4 team versus a top 10 team. It's still 2 top 10 teams, and Notre Dame, of course, is the 2-time defending champion. 5 seed Penn State Colgate. I mean, that was the surprise of the weekend. I think in some ways, really, how close that game was. Not because Colgate wasn't good. I just didn't. We talked about it. I just didn't see that being the matchup for Colgate. But I thought they played probably their best game of the year. You consider how well they played 6-on-6. Offensively, super efficient. Obviously, Frasian's struggles played a big role in that. But defensively, they played really well too, considering the face-off deficit. Then you had, keep that game to 1. Syracuse, Harvard, my goodness. But that was Harvard had won that game in the regular season. 7 seed Georgetown and Duke. 8 seed Richmond. I mean, all these games are the 6, 7, 8, and 4 matchups. That's 4 first-round games between 2 teams who are right there. I think it's something of, and again, we're not going to your point, listen, we say it on here. You always rather win. Winning is good. But the emotional, what you put out emotionally, the exertion of winning that conference championship, and the obviously the adulation you get from it and how important it. Look, Ohio State never won. Prior to 2 weeks ago, Ohio State never won any Big Ten championship. Then they won 2 in back-to-back weeks. One of them they went over their probably, I would say, probably their 2 biggest rivals in Big Ten play. Michigan, obviously, and then Maryland. So what that game has meant, they beat them in back-to-back weeks. There's always this thing. I think Terry Floyd brought this up. Like you can't. Can you really play great for 5-6 straight weeks? Because when you win the conference championship, that's what you're looking at. Is when is the right time to peak? Honestly, what I said, the best time to peak is this weekend. Player get best game of the year this weekend. But if you're running that high for 3-4 weeks, can you continue that through? I think you saw this a lot probably with Syracuse too. Going into that tournament, not knowing if they were totally safe on that Friday in the ACC tournament, they had to play that game to a degree like an elimination game. Syracuse had lost that game, they would have been sitting there like, man, I don't know. Because they definitely would have been behind Harvard, and then it would have been between Syracuse and Army. Would they got in? I think so, yeah. But nonetheless, you're unsure. Then they played Duke on that Sunday as well. And I think you maybe saw some of that as well. It's the right time, especially now where the first round is once again so competitive. I think it's been a while. Like those 4 years during COVID were just, or COVID and then the after and the transfer portal and things like that. That's just really unlike anything we've seen in college lacrosse in a long time. I think, and this is a off-season conversation. I think the 2010s will probably go down as like the closest thing men's college lacrosse ever had to parity, like true parity. You consider the different number of teams that won the title and things like that. I think we're moving away from that, but again, this is that's an off-season pod conversation. But that's what we were kind of used to recently. This 2015, 2016, 17, 18 is how close these teams were and how competitive these games were. And then we kind of flipped from that, where you had these ACC and Big Ten teams especially loaded up on 23-year-olds, seniors who had such experience. It gave them a bit of a separation from everybody else in the first round. And now we're kind of back more to what we, at least in the first round, what we're used to. And so all these teams are so close, competitive. That first round is so tough. There's often graduation with this going on. Like Carolina had the graduation like across the street. The first round, Cuse obviously comes right from it. So often it's just about that first round is really just about winning. Just get through it. Just get through it. We move on. Classes are done now. You all focus on lacrosse. And I just think, for Ohio State in particular, I think is the best example of this. And this is taking nothing away from Notre Dame. Notre Dame played their best game of the season at the right time. So they did. Like they were tremendous. And my thing with Ohio State is like 15-6 is 15-6. I can't. You could have played that game in Arlada. You could have played that game on the moon. You could have played it in the football stadium at the Horseshoe. It wouldn't matter. Notre Dame was winning that game. They were just a better team on that day. I would say I had that worry going in. We talked about it on the show. I'm like, there's so much hype around this game. There's so much anticipation. There's all the talk. I just wonder if one team's going to come out flat and they're just not going to have the emotional. And to be fair, Ohio State didn't come out flat. I mean, they came out and they got the lead, but they just didn't have another punch. They had one punch. And maybe if you get up 5-1, 6-1, you get a big lead, you put Notre Dame in a hole, maybe you can stand there. But once Notre Dame got up, they just didn't have another punch. Just one there. And look, not winning face-offs contributes to this.
That's what I'm saying. 18-7. I mean, just the mean, which is the sense. I was like, oh my God. I mean, number to end in terms of face-off losses, 18-7 is just poetic for us. But yeah, it was just like, it just can't get off the mat. It's really, if you have that dominant of a face-off day and a average team as Notre Dame's clearly, but they're not their super elite teams. of the last two, but still like a pretty decent team. It's like fighting in a war, and one side has an air force, the other one doesn't. And I get it. Everyone's play good defense. I was like, yeah, I get that. But it's just like with other teams, play make it take it. Like it gets to a point where you can't really argue. That how much of an impact it can play. Like they didn't have David Godelli was great in goal for Notre Dame, so it kind of like prevented Ohio State from really doing anything. But yeah, it's just because I'm comparing it to the game earlier this year. Right? It's much more even. Ohio State won that face-off battle 13-9. Like, just not saying just like that's the only thing. But I was like, that's the one thing that definitely jumps out.
I think overall they just didn't. Face is a huge part of it. You're just unable when you get behind. It's such hard to. You just got to string stops together, a lot of stops together when you're behind to get back into it, and they just didn't quite have it. Fiat played well too, which is
I think it's just like it's kind of got one part. I think it's like football. If you're like a running team and you get behind 2 or 3 goals, 2 or 3 touchdowns, like it's definitely like it's not your offense. It's not really Ohio State's offense. So like run and gun, even though they've been a little bit better shooters and stuff like that. But it's just
That's what I thought disappointed me to a degree. The Ohio State offense I saw against Maryland really took it to them early. They attacked them early in the shot clock. Before Maryland could set up, Ohio State was going with dodges at 50 seconds on the shot clock, 45 seconds on the shot clock. Like immediately, the first chance somebody got to go for a dodge and see if they could beat their man or draw a slide, they were doing it, and it was successful. They were getting Maryland to slide off the crease. Sometimes they just flat out ran by their guy. Maryland looked kind of flat-footed, surprised, and it was Ohio State's best game of the season. And then they played offense against Notre Dame. And again, faceoffs does play a part in this, but even this was kind of just the case from the first quarter. A lot of ball rotation, subbing guys on, taking up a lot of time, and I just thought that really worked for you. And I think that's what we need playing against Notre Dame. Notre Dame is very good defensively, but I mean they're almost impossible. You want to try and beat them late in the shot clock. You got to play just great offense to beat them late in the shot clock. When you get chances to attack them, you got to attack them. There are some vulnerabilities there. Their shorties, I think, are good, but I don't think they're the excellent that they were the last couple seasons. I think that they're 2 and 3 polls. Schwarzenberg and Gallagher, good players, but they're not quite what it was the last couple years. It's like there's areas you can attack them, but you got to be willing to attack it. And I just didn't see that with Ohio State. It felt more what we're kind of accustomed to. And I think that was a little disappointing for me. So, yeah, it's a tough. I mean, look, they finished anytime Ohio State finished the year ranked second in the media poll, losing the first round. That's tough. On the other hand, finishing second in the media poll in the regular season obviously says a great deal about the successful season they had. They lost 2 games after February 4th. Historic season, and really in respects, winning a Big Ten regular season title, winning a Big Ten tournament title. Not many teams have done that. It's Maryland many times, and then Penn State in 2019. So a lot here did go right for Ohio State in 2025. I think where you are maybe questions going forward will be we talk about this a lot, have they bridged the gap from being a team that can have a great year when the talent kind of seniors, you get a great group of seniors, experience, you get on the right, that talent boom cycle really hits for you, or have they transitioned to kind of where Penn State is now, which Penn State's made 3 straight NCAA tournaments. They made a Final Four in 23. They're on a quarterfinal 25. There's a consistency on where Penn State is year over year. It's not like it was early in Tam's tenure where they made the tournament a couple times and they had 2019, but it was every other year, every couple years. Is Ohio State at that point? Because if you're not, man, they graduate a lot of seniors. I mean, almost everyone on that offense is a senior. Not Garrett Hostings, sophomore, but a lot of seniors on that offense. You're going to have to bring. I mean, you're going to have to essentially have an entirely new offense for Ohio State in 2026. On the defensive side of the ball, you have some positives in terms of Fiok is obviously back. You got 2 more years from him, which is terrific. Cullen Brown is back. Van Buren is a senior. So you lose him, your number 1 poll. They do lose some of their rope unit. Langermeyer is a senior. Ari Allen's a senior. Blake Island is one of the shorties. He's a junior. So that's kind of where I would say, have you done enough? Have you built up a deep enough pool of talent on your roster to withstand these losses? I mean, they're kind of in a position Johns Hopkins was in going into this year with how much they're going to have to replace. And we see in the Big Ten, when you are young and you are replacing a lot in a league that's so competitive, you can get feasted on. That's what happened to Johns Hopkins this year. Now, Ohio State does have, again, with Fiok in goal, you're going to be competitive. We saw this with them in 2023. They had Fiok, and they had a defense that was very strong, and they were competitive. But I think the question is, have you made enough strides, or did you have a team that hit really well on a great group, a great senior class? And Ohio State had one of, if not the best senior classes in the entire country. And now you have to replace those guys, and you got great things out of it. It's not like you won Big Ten championships, so you got out of it, but you didn't get a Final Four run out of it. You lost in the first round. And we saw, again, go back to the Hopkins comparison. Hopkins had great things out of it. They got a Big Ten regular season title. They got to the quarterfinals, but they didn't get a Final Four. And it's obviously led to a lot of consternation from Hopkins fans over the last year. So that's my word with Ohio State is this was a team driven by its senior class. And the last time you could say that about Ohio State was probably 2022. They got to the tournament, had a good year. We saw the next 2 years. Can this program develop a bit of, is the consistency there that they had kind of more in the 2010s where they were kind of every other year? If not, I think next year could be a bit tough.
It feels like there should be no reason why Ohio State should just everything. This is how I'm just looking at numbers, Jay. It's good enough. Like, how many kids play lacrosse in America? I think it's like 100,000 or something, 160,000. There's 78 programs. Say there's only 60 players per program. That's less than 5,000 total Division I college lacrosse players. It feels like with a school like Ohio State with their reach and like they were talking about like the national scope of their roster, that this is time to be like, hey, we no longer need to. I'm not saying like win the Big Ten every year, but consistently making the tournament every year, like Penn State has shown. Like you can maybe even argue, but for the pandemic, 2020, they would have gone in most likely.
Yeah.
With Grant. If Grant came back in 2021, they probably get back in there. Like, and so like it's been a pretty consistent run throughout 2019, but for unforeseen like
2018, you could argue if Grant isn't hurt that year, they make it that.
Absolutely.
I'm not even going to argue that they were a top 20 team that lost their best player.
That's why I was like, yeah, they're going to blow up in 2019. He's coming back as long as he's healthy. They lost like every game by one or in overtime. I was like,
I went back and looked a couple of weeks ago at like our poll that year, 2019, and they were like the only team in the top 10 that hadn't made the tournament the year before. It was like, I mean, there's no reason really that they, with all the talent they have, that they shouldn't. I think that's what I said. I'm like, man, they got talent everyone on this roster. There's no reason it shouldn't. They just got to prove it. And then a week later, they were number one of the. Like a month later, they were number one of the country. So, Penn State's done it. You're right. Penn State has done it. Ohio State is not. And what do you attribute that to? It feels like it's hard not to attribute it to TAMS. Like Penn State's got what, a top 5 coach in the country? Somebody in there. I mean, outside of the Corrigan and Lars and
I don't think we can understate how important that 2019 season was, because like he came there 2011, and for a bit they had the rep of they got to make it, then they make it, and it was like bowing out in the first round, and like that team and Grant and just Mac and like just the whole thing. It was like a rock
because the recruiting that they've done. Now I don't know if that you can directly all attribute it to that, but you look at the recruiting they're doing now in especially at Grant's. Grant went to Malvern Prep, I think, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're starting to get a lot more guys there now than they did before. I mean, I'm going to look at their roster. If IO used to have, does IO still have it?
They haven't it for school, but yeah, same Big Five schools.
Where the guys were from.
Yeah, I feel like now they just own Penn State, Pennsylvania.
They recruit better than they did in the beginning of his tenure. Let me see. Penn State. I couldn't get it up on the computer. It hurt the internet. Couldn't withstand. All right, this is crappy. But Matt Trainer is from. I think he's a. Malvern. Matt Trainer, Malvern Prep. Kyle Lehman is, and he's also. I mean, he's a legacy guy, but he's from Wissahickon, in Pennsylvania. So they're starting to get a lot more guys from that, in Pennsylvania, like really targeting. Hunter Aquino is a Pennsylvania guy. Like there's guys that they're getting now that they were not getting at the beginning of his tenure. And I think you could maybe, attribute that to the success of Grant and like Brendan Leary's from Haverford. That's another big program. The Bartolomeo brothers are from Malvern Prep. They're recruiting. They got some good recruiting in Maryland as well. Ethan Long, Fraskin are Maryland guys. So there is, I mean, obviously Matt Trainer's brother, Jeff Trainer before him. Will Costins from Haverford School. So you could, these kind of key, the big private schools in that area, they're having a lot more success this decade than they were before. And I think 2019, that run is significant of that. Ohio State's a little different in sense. Lacrosse has definitely grown in Ohio, but it's not. It is not what it's not. You don't have those kind of schools like you have in Philly or in Maryland, Baltimore. Those kind of pipeline, or in New England, to pull from. And you see that. I mean, look, Ohio State's roster is. I think they have a very small number of guys from Maryland, New York, Pennsylvania. I mean, they got guys from everywhere across the country. They have a really
Idaho.
Idaho, Texas. I mean, you're looking among the guys on the key guys on their roster. It's Griffin Turner from California, Garrett Haas is from Texas, Ari Allen's from Atlanta, Georgia, Alex Marinier is Canadian, Shane O'Leary's from Massachusetts, Ryan Donnery is from New York. He was a transfer though. Ed Sheen, California. Fayok is probably their main guy. He was a St. John's guy, Maryland. They still some Maryland guys, but I mean a bunch of William White's from Illinois, Gana Matthews, of course, Idaho. Jack McKenna from Connecticut. So they got a bunch of guys from across, but they had the Canadian guys for a while there in the 2010s. That was a pretty fruitful, right, for them. I think that's, and here's what I'll say. For whatever reason, I don't think they got a lot out of. I don't think it's wrong to say this. Did they get a lot out of that run of the championship in 2017 in terms of like? I don't think the same effect that it seems like we can maybe say that Penn State got from 2019. I don't think Ohio State got from 2017. I mean, and to a degree, look, I mean, the results case is just pretty clear there. They didn't get back to the tournament until 2022. Now, the stadium did it help like the stadium get built and things like that. That's one, but I think that as a whole is probably just Myers, how long he'd been there, and what he put into the program for. I mean, Myers has been there like almost 20 years now. So I'm not. I don't know if I think the stadium thing was a more long term than just of 2017. This
year, 2019 Panzer, kind of right around the time like they start to make a consistent like tournament appearance.
So that's maybe something if you want to be long term positives. We've seen the crowds at the stadium they've had this year. The environment that they've cultivated there. They had a great crowd.
Tickets for $1,000, Jake. Columbus.
Arm and a leg, firstborn.
That's that Great Lakes money.
winning the Big Ten. Maybe this could be something like that for Ohio State. Is what this year was in terms of the great crowds they had all year, winning 2 Big Ten. Maybe this can be something that can turn it around for them, or like something turn around, but just like continue to build on. I think that's got to be the goal because yeah, you're right. That's the level really that you got to get to. We talked about this when I don't know if we did this conversation with Hopkins on air or we did it off air. Probably both, but that was Bob's point. My point was there are a certain number of schools. Maryland, Notre Dame are the main two. Duke as well. Even if it's this point, Duke's still in the tournament almost every year. Virginia missed this year. Be interesting, but before that with Lars, they've been where Georgetown is at. Where Princeton 4 in a row with Madeline doesn't seem like it's going to slow down anytime soon. Penn State. That's where you want to get to. Is look, whatever like Georgetown, I think is a great example. Georgetown has that experience, and that experience is a real value to them. I mean, it is a real like I said, cultural. That for me, that was what it was against Duke on Sunday, and that's because they made the tournament 7 straight times.
No, they've been around the block. They're yeah.
They maybe haven't made the Final Four, and look, that's the goal. There's no, we'll do it when we talk about Georgetown Maryland here. Like that's the only thing they haven't done. Other than that, and them getting to these quarterfinals 3 years in a row now, 4 to 5 years. Every time we do this pod, we talk about Georgetown. It's because they've had they built it, the building blocks, and they repeat. And I mentioned it with Princeton. I think this huge part is the fact that they made the Final Four and then didn't just miss. And yeah, you could have said if you were them, man, we had so many guys hurt, or all our guys transferred out. There are schools. Those are valid excuses, but they're still excuses. If you can just be like, nah, it doesn't matter. We're going to make the tournament anyway. Even if you lose in the first round, it's huge. And so, yeah, for a lot of programs out there in this kind of Ohio State's boat. But North Carolina's one. They're definitely one that gets attention because, look, as you mentioned, it is Ohio State. And that to me, yeah, that's the question going forward for them. Do they have the talent throughout the roster still that got playing time this year and can build on this because they're going to need it next year. I mean, it's going to be tough graduating that many seniors in a league as we see with the Big Ten that only just gets more competitive. And it's going to get more competitive. It's going to be still competitive next year. Maryland's going to be Maryland. Penn State's going to be pretty darn good next year too. Hopkins is going to be better. Rutgers is going to be better, I think. So that's what you're kind of looking at. All right. Air Force?
Yeah.
Bill Wilson, Adam mentioned this. Bill Wilson's quietly been in Air Force for a while now. it feels like it was just kind of like yesterday when he took over. And man, he's built a really solid program there. And Ceramit had an incredible deal of success. They made the tournament 3 times in 4. They had a senior class in 2017. That senior class, the Air Force, won 46 games in 4 years and made the tournament 3 times. That was an incredible run of success. Wilson took over in the fall? When he was the interim?
Yeah.
And a 5-10. So losing all those seniors from the 2017, that had done that success. And then taking over in the fall, a difficult first season, 5-10. But after that, they went 10-5 in 2019, won a share of the SoCon title. Up and down through COVID, but since coming out of 2020 and 2021, 8 wins in 2022, 11 wins in 2023, went 8-1 in the conference last year in 2024, now made the NCAA tournament this season. Just a quietly consistent program that they have had and that he's built. And I mean, this year, you look at what they did. They had 2 wins on going into April.
I started out 0-4, and I mean, finished the season 9-8, so amazing turnaround. But yeah, absolutely, kind of a disastrous start out of the gates. I'm really impressed with the back-to-back, not back-to-back later, but the 2 doubling up Utah. Because I was as bad as Utah saw, I still was just like, I got
They've been the boss of the league the last 2 years.
Yeah. I was a little figure it out, we got that, and then in the championship game after beating them at home in overtime to win it again in the title game after defeating Jacksonville was hosting the tournament. Just testament to the Falcons, continuing it on with Robert Morris, in the playing game, and always tough to take on the Terps in Tillman. So, the ride eventually had to end, but absolutely, really on fire from April 5th on, they essentially won every single game, won out to win the ASUN title, and then, getting a tournament win with the playing game and, taking on Maryland and, the last Sunday. So I hear you, Jake, the Falcons, kind of, it was playing to, kind of, mountain teams, so a little bit hard to cover them as intensely as we do the teams on the East. But yeah, consistent team, maybe tournament here and there. Kind of fun to be a United States Air Force pilot and a lacrosse player. If that's just a great one-liner if you're ever at a restaurant or meeting people.
Who is it? Their best player, Josh Diego. I mean, he's 72 points this year. He's in the transfer portal, and then he's gonna go in the Air Force.
Yeah. Finishes fifth all time at Air Force with 156 points.
Talk about a hell of a as you said, right? I played Crosse for 4 years at Air Force. He's probably gonna go to a good team next year, and to get another degree from somewhere else.
And I fly a $50 million check.
Then I'm going to go back in the Air Force. They should have a good team next year. Kalen Driggs, who was his partner at 60 goals this year, he'll be back. They bring back a decent amount of their scoring. I think, Ryan mentioned it in our group chat as well. Potential for a decent rivalry there with them in Utah in the league. Now that Utah was obviously on a great it's interesting to see how they kind of bounce back after sort of being knocked off the upper trajectory they were on. But it's an Air Force program that always just seems to get the most out of itself. Similar, I think you could say, similar to Army in the sense of their consistency in winning. And look, Air Force is a tougher program to recruit to and things than Army is because of location, things like that. More difficult travel, all those things. But they can allow themselves. Wilson's done a really good job there. And I think we're going to see now that we talked about we know that you see the concept of what Ceramit did there. I think it's possible we'll see them again in the tournament. in the not too distant future. Again, I don't know they're going to become, with Georgetown making seventh or anything like that. But if you told me they're in the tournament again next year and a year or two, yeah, I think it's definitely possible for them. Now that they have it under their belt and they've done it, because they've had, again, we talk about how good seasons, but that's what I look for. Replacing Diego would have some of the other guys in their offense, but like that offense was pretty good this year. When you look at the adjusted efficiency, they were 16th in adjusted offensive efficiency. I think, man, you lose your best player, but definitely have some other talent still there to work with. Like what they did this year, 30th adjusted defensive efficiency, they were 43rd. They weren't great facing off or in goal either. You gotta be really good to make up for some of those, like not being a great, especially mid-major, not being a great face-off, not being a great goalie team. The kind of how good their offense was, and they rode that and had a really nice year. All right, Harvard.
This is even last. This is we go Albany, and then I just we got so many. I think we could. I just that's or was that messing up the schedule? I just figured like just kind of fun to talk about. It just because days kind of similar, like horror start 3 and 8, and then just like flying through with a 7-game win streak to win the American East with their playing game against Siena, and then kind of had a little bit for Cornell for 5-6 minutes in that game before the Big Red really kind of took it to him. But yeah, Albany just really kind of a miracle run for them after just such a bad start. Something maybe a little bit of a theme for them. Last year also don't feel like that was that great of a start for them, and then turn it around one day.
Even right down to the game, the first round game. Remember last year they were either up on Notre Dame or down 1 at halftime, and then when Notre Dame put their run in, that was about it. But 2024 they started 0-4 or 2-5. This is something that I'm not saying starting 1-4 whatever is what you want. But I do think there's something to. I think them and Towson are kind of interesting to look at because they were sort of the belle of the ball when it came to mid majors in the 2010s, and they're with where their leagues are at now. The America East is not quite what it was. I mean, Albany was kind of a huge part of that. But like Stony Brook is now gone from the league. That was kind of the second team in there. And if you look at Towson, the CAA has just been kind of like they're the last team. They're like the Will Smith meme from Fresh Prince. It's like, where'd everybody go? No more UMass, no more Delaware.
Pockets, yeah.
And Hofstra hadn't been what it was for a while now. We'll see what Drexel, Boyle, and them had a good year this year. But these programs, it feels like they, because of with the way the league has kind of dropped off, I think more than ever, Mar and Nadal both are kind of really valuing the non-conference and like trying to schedule Towson's schedule's super tough. That was a big part of why they were, got off to the difficult start was when you look at the team they opened with Hopkins, Syracuse right off the bat, Navy, St. Joe's in there, Virginia also scheduled Loyola later in the year, normally a tougher opponent. But you look at Albany too. Albany played Colgate week 1. They played UMass, difficult opponent, Georgetown. They play Cornell at a conference. We've seen them play. Albany played Virginia too.
Yeah, and I'm still kind of talked about teams. So Cornell game added all of a sudden at the end, the season.
Yeah, Yale. They beat Yale this year. Pretty crazy. So I think this is kind of, again, they're not that they're surrendering the beginning of the season, but it's look, we're going to schedule really hard. If we lose, we lose. But we know that by the end of the year in our league, we're going to be more well prepared than anybody. We're going to be more battle tested than anybody else in our league. That's going to be advantageous for us. We're going to have gone through the kind of a gauntlet early, be better for it, more experienced, and nothing's going to phase us. And when we get in the tournament, we'll have experience of playing these teams. And again, they don't quite have Towson and Albany, certainly Albany's case, the big names that they once did. But it seems like they're adjusting now to both these programs had kind of difficult starts post-COVID, kind of in there missing the term. It seems like they're adjusting now and getting back into their groove and an identity in terms of how they're scheduling, how it's preparing them for later in the year. And they seem to have a second wind when they get into conference play that maybe some of their peers do not have, and are playing their best ball come April. And I'll say this for Albany: maybe it's not. I don't think it'll be what it was with the Thompsons. And then 2018, you had Connor Fields, but also of course TD. Silas Richmond, 89 points this year. That guy is a highlight reel. Back next year as a senior, I think I've seen him being like projected as like a top 5 pick potentially in the PLL for next year. You get him back for a senior year. You've got Ryan Doherty, 45 goals as a sophomore. Some other guys like Colton Marquis, he was at Hopkins when he was transferred in there, had a nice year. They return their their starters on offense. Could this maybe next year maybe be something for them with kind of having more of those big offensive names that they had in the past? Again, I'm not saying it's not Thompson, it's not Connor Fields, but that Silas Richmond guy he's something. He's a hell of a player. And if he can take maybe another leap as a senior, and you have an offense now experienced as well, a lot of talent there. They've been able to lean more on their. They had a freshman this year in goal, Brady Smith. They were able to lean more on their defense as well later in the year. I was impressed by the way that they managed the way that Marr has game plan for them these tournament games. Again, they don't have enough juice at the end, but the way that they're able to play methodically on offense as well, kind of slow it down a bit more, and buckle in defensively these last 2 years against Notre Dame and Cornell, to at least give them a shot. We know we can't run and gun with them, so can we do something else? And they've done it for a half. I don't know. I think Albany might have something next year. I think it has potential to be the best team they've had probably since they made the Final Four.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting run for more at Albany. There's so much early success, bit of a dip, not coming back to back tournaments.
I'm really impressed by what they did. It felt when they lost TD, of course, and then obviously Fields and all those guys, and it felt kind of like maybe the juice was. You kind of wondered if they were just going to recede back into just one of the programs there, and that's not been the case. I'm really impressed by kind of how they've pushed their way through that. I think next year has the potential to be a really strong year for them. Probably start in the top 20 next year. All right, now we'll do Harvard.
Now the Crimson Jake. I just devastating end to the game to Syracuse.
We're devastated.
One thing I was thinking of is similar to at that point I made about Ohio State, how Notre Dame was able to tie it up quickly after they extended so much energy to get that 3-1 lead.
You scored what, 5 goals in 2 minutes?
That's it, Jake, because it's the penalty is what the penalty is, but they scored 7 seconds for the first goal after that.
The worst thing to say about it.
1 minute cross check. They scored 7 seconds later, 28 seconds later, 11 seconds later, and then 38 seconds later, and then 20 seconds later, and then there was the gap when it was tied. and then Hughes got gifted another penalty later, which is hilarious because Dixon was just like literally the last possession, the previous possession where Harvard had it. Like King gets mugged. I mean, just a straight up like New York City 1970 style mugging, and he's just on the ground and Dixon. Hey, it's just prison rules, man. In the dome today. No blood, no foul.
Like a minute later.
It's just like, it was, I'm not saying it wasn't a push, but it like, I was just I thought we were playing like,
not prison rules now. The first one is a push, but I think English is already going down. And if he doesn't go down, I don't think it gets called. So, not to say that he flopped or anything. I just think his momentum was taking him down. And then the push got him there. So again, but it's in context with the King what played the possession before. It's something. The second one is just not even a penalty.
This was great because this was like, get up. Don't beg for a call. Like, it's not today, son. Everybody get up. Brush yourself off. This is how it's going. Literally, like, hey, it's just like, hey, you got to make that call.
Saying prison rules in a game that had like 27 penalties in general is just also funny. It doesn't seem like it. They're calling a lot of penalties.
And it's like, I remember the Krasnicki unnecessary roughness. I was like, that could have been 2 minutes, like not releasable. I guess it was like those 4 flags or all. There was a slash that he also, because I thought the slash was pretty bad because he like hit him in the head twice.
They could have got 6 penalties on that play.
It's just like, just one guy would be in there for. I was like, but yeah, just the speed in which the thing Orange came back
about it is that none of it ever felt surprising. Hughes scores 3 goals in 45 seconds, and you're like, yeah, I kind of saw that. I don't know how many times I tweeted in the game, like, I still don't think this thing's over. I still don't think you just could feel it. Like
it's dominant day on the face-off, and they just needed that one. And I'm Jerry Burns forgotten more about lacrosse than I'll ever know. But when they scored that first goal real quick, I may have called the timeout. And just like, hey.
I think Hughes did. Either after the first one or the second one, Hughes called a timeout. I think Hughes called a timeout after the first one. Because I remember tweeting, like, I was like, I don't know about this. I thought, if I was Hughes, I'm like, man, listen, you got them rolling. Like, they're on there. I just keep playing. Obviously, Hughes, it worked for them.
After the third goal, timeout Syracuse. So Spidell scores, gets them up 5. Then Roa scores 10-28. Penalty on Guest 10-13. Q scores their 8th goal. Screw scores their 9th goal. Then the timeout. So yeah. Had to get to the time, but even the first one, just because it was like so quick, I would have like maybe just like, hey boys, let's just take a breath. We got a 3-goal lead here. I know they just scored here. We still got 50 plus seconds of extra man or down a man.
I think the difficult thing for me with this game was I tweeted out that I thought Harvard was getting sucked into Cuse's game a little bit in that fourth quarter. But the thing is, that's kind of Harvard's game too. I mean, Harvard has been all year they've been led by their offense. They succeed when we see the way the style they play. We talk about like it's Harlem Globetrotters sometimes. And when Cuse was making their mistakes, Harvard obviously fed off of that. Both teams fed off the mistakes of the others in this game. It felt to me like Harvard just didn't have the gear, the ability to switch. Like, okay, now we need to go in and like, listen, guys, we're up 5 goals. When we get the ball, and part of the problem is they just couldn't get the ball. But I mean, that's ultimately
again 25-4,
27. It was 28-4 in the first game. It was 27-4 in the second game. Cuse won 55 of 63 faceoffs in these two. I mean, if you're Harvard, in some ways, you could argue this is the story of their season. Harvard was 68th in adjusted faceoff efficiency this year. 68th. The only teams worse were Binghamton, Holy Cross, Monmouth, VMI, Manhattan, Mount, Iona, Hampton, and Mercyhurst. They won 40% Dude, I'm not saying faceoffs are. There's a trick, how important were faceoff is. You can say, I think every team that won the faceoffs this weekend did win. I think John Donville tweeted that stat out. On the other hand, you could argue, somebody had it. Somebody tweeted this out there. They did some math on it. Where it was? It was in our mentions. Here we go. So these were just the teams going in. This was at Jack Joyce at Jack JOYC3 on Twitter. Only 8 out of 18 tournament teams, counting the play-in, had a face-off win rate of over 50%. There were 38 teams over 500, but 15 of the 18 had a save percentage of over 50%. You can find ways to mitigate face-offs. It's true. It is, but you can't mitigate like 4 of 20. And you can do it once. Eventually, it's just going to get the bill is going to come due. It's just too many possessions, especially for an offense like Syracuse. You just at some point you need a face-off win, and you need to, because at 11-6, at that point to me, maybe not in every game, but in that game at 11-6, every possession is we're running 2 minutes. Like that shot clock, we are running that shot clock down. Especially in that game where it's just so crazy, and I'm like, dude, your mission is if we got this ball with 8 minutes left, they need to get it with 6. Like we're chunking time off that thing.
Absolutely. No.
And again, not every game. My view generally is, I just put it like, maybe I don't know how their coaches think. I always just kind of intuitively think of it like lead to minutes. If we have a 4-goal lead, once we get to 4 minutes left, that thing needs to be, done. 5-goal lead, 5 minutes left. But in that kind of game, I think you're just like, they needed to kill that game. That game needed to be. That game
needed shooting threes when they're up 20. The first 2 games, like.
That game needed Dean Smith 4 corners offense.
Yeah, back in the day, you'd just be benched if you shot a 3, even up like 10.
Slow it down, just slow, and the game could never get slowed down. And I think that's Harvard's undoing here. Is all season this is kind of, and again, that's kind of how you have to play when you don't win faceoffs. But quarterfinal teams, great teams have we talked about have the ability to play at different speeds. They can play a defensive game. They can play an offensive game. And also in general, and this is true of, I'm going to get into the point we talk about these games. I talked about the way that I viewed this tournament as like a weak link tournament. The story was going to be your biggest weakness. Harvard's biggest weakness going in was faceoffs. At the end of the day, that was the weak link of the game. Harvard's weak link was disastrous. And now look, Syracuse's weak link is their discipline, the penalties they take, the way they sort of melt down sometimes. That was still a big weak link in that one too. I mean, Syracuse almost gave that game away with the way they played in that first half. But yeah, Harvard just look, a good season. Definitely getting back in the tournament. Burns' second time in 4 years. They've got talent on that roster, and I think they will grow from this. But you have to grow from this. This was a true. If you don't take anything from this one, you wasted it, because this has to be one that the next time you get in the tournament, it doesn't happen again. And obviously, that needs to start with, hey guys, we need to find a face-off guy. How you gonna do? I mean, just you can't be 40% on faceoffs and win games in the tournament, or you can't. You can be 40% on faceoffs and win games in the tournament. If you're a 40% faceoff team for the season, you're probably not winning 40% of faceoffs in the tournament, because, as you always talk about, you're playing the best faceoff guys. You're playing. It's the best of So if you're a 40% team for the season, it's probably going to get worse, as we saw. And yeah, that's brutal. That's brutal. It was right there, man. I mean, they had that game, man. Very
like one of those early Shea years. You kind of forget she was there for a long time before they even ever made the tournament. Right? I think it was got out in 03, didn't make the tournament to 2012. Like essentially, had difficulty got the quarterfinals in 2013, but kind of had difficulty getting back until 2018. There was feels like one of those games where it's like, I honestly think like this may hurt more than the Ohio State loss. But I think it's also probably like equally motivating. Like the Ohio State one's like kind of you got outclassed at home. Maybe the build-up got to you and stuff like that. This, they'll be like, we missed an opportunity to get like a Elite Eight appearance ahead of schedule. Given how good the Ivy League is, and then you have 3 teams make it to Elite Eight. Like I think it's been a testament to the strength of the league, helped the program greatly. But I think it was everybody's eyes was on this game. In the fourth quarter. So I think there's definitely what was always said. There are no more victories in the Crosse, but there are learning experiences, and this is definitely going to be a learning experience that they'll be able to carry on.
It has to be. There's no other. There's just nothing else that if it's not a learning experience, it's a waste.
It feels like they're on the cusp of blowing up because I'm like, it's I know recruiting's hard, but it's like if you're Harvard, just go up to the best face-off guy. Like, do you want to go to Harvard? It's like let's talk to your parents first. Do you want your son to go to Harvard? And I just joke around with you, I love my, but it's like, I got rejected from Princeton. It's like if I got Princeton, my mom would just be like laughing in my face. If I said, I'm gonna go to Baltimore. No, you're not. You get a face-off guy with that offense. They could be onto something up there.
They don't. Okay, so they have. I'm just looking at the recruiting classes. In this current class, they got one face-off guy committed. He doesn't have a ranking. Class of 2026. They don't have a face-off guy in the class.
Who's the best? Can you see that? Find the 5 best face-off guys. And Burns just needs to call the parents. And so I know you go to Duke.
And the worst thing is this is also where it hurts the Ivy. You can't just bring a guy in.
Yeah. Well, they might
need to do some Andy Shea greasing of the wheels.
They need a Big Daddy Joe Tsai. Already got plenty of billionaires. Somebody's interested in lacrosse.
Like the Ivy League transfer rules. I don't know. Can we get him in somehow?
Who was the guy that was the husband or boyfriend of the Michigan alum that got the quarterback with the $10 million? Yeah, it's like 20 Larry Ellis.
They should do. I mean, look, a face-off guy. They need to go to. Yeah, I mean, this is whoever the best available face-off guy is. Yeah, they need to solve that right away.
The next thing to do is a summer trip to Wall Street.
Other teams will look at this and be like, okay, we just need to go get a face-off guy in the transfer portal right now. They can't do that, which is who is it? The Vermont face-off guy who won 70% this year in the transfer portal. So, Notre Dame is just Notre Dame. They probably already called that guy. They probably called that guy 10 seconds after he entered the portal.
You're absolutely right. But also, as we know, where there's an Uncle Joe, there's a way. So,
yeah. I mean, you literally can't transfer. I think he's a junior. You cannot transfer into the Ivy League as a senior. So, I don't know. Maybe they need find a freshman. Find some freshmen out there who I don't know is sitting on
NCAA Lacrosse.
Just go type in best freshman face-off guys.
Just go right. I'm not gonna go to I love Zach, but I'm just gonna go old school best face-off winning percentage, and we should go by last year.
If you are a freshman or a sophomore, you need to come to Harvard right now.
Jerry Bird would like to talk to you and your parents.
Listen, I know you've done a year at wherever, but how would you like to do your next 3 years at Harvard?
You miss Ross Prince. George is going to be tough to get him out of Crosse. That's not bad. You know, a lot of people want to go to. All right, who's next? Logan Bennett, freshman, Siena, 14.
Yeah, call him up. Let's go.
Logan. Right. He's on the top. Logan Bennett's 14. Midden Murphy, BU. He doesn't even need to travel that far. And she's best thing about like some moves is like we don't have to move your stuff. Like he's just like taking the subway. Jerry Bird needs to call Matt Murphy's parents right now and just be like, well, what's going on?
Liam Gleason and Ryan Poley, please do not. The views expressed here are not. We are not saying we want you to lose your face-off, guy.
We're not tampering. I'm just saying, like,
we are not
the Harvard War Room. These are the discussions they should be having.
40%, man. Oh, jeez. The next worst tournament team was Albany, who was 46%. Man, speaking of also just total out of the park, pristine calls. Denver won 43% of their faceoffs this year.
Nailed that.
Just nailed that. Not good. Not good. Another team needs a faceoff guy. Might be calling that Vermont guy, Henry Dodge.
What is it? Dartmouth? It's a freshman.
All right. Money round. Title of this pod is Money Rules Everything Around Me. So this is how I'm going to view these 4 games. Because I said this going in what I mentioned earlier about the weak link. So if we go, I'm going to go through the 8 first round games. And you can maybe disagree with this. This might be some select like Bill Simmons 42 club engineering to get the outcome I want here. But so Save, how about this? You can vibe check me. I'm going to go with these 4 games. I'm going to mention each team's, what I view as each team's weak link going in. Okay. And then how it played out. So Richmond, Carolina. I would say Richmond's late game execution versus comparison of UNC's non-Petro and Duffy scoring. I think those are the weak both teams.
I think, yeah, absolutely. They're just an experienced bunch, Richmond. Like, we were kind of making those points earlier about the Ohio State game.
Questions about execution late in games, being able to, shut the door.
Did they silence all those questions?
I'm just saying going in. Like, this was my, going in, I thought the weak
this was their weakness? Oh, yeah.
For Richmond was late game execution. For Carolina, it's non-Petro and Duffy scoring. Result, UNC. UNC in that game, Richmond executed great late. UNC did not get scoring out of Petro and Duffy. Who won? Richmond.
Yep.
Princeton, Towson, 2 weak links. I thought the weak links going in were Princeton at faceoff and Towson's goaltending. Princeton's faceoff play was fantastic. Towson's goaltending was not. Who won? Princeton. This is the one outlier. Going in, I would have said that Penn State's weak link, as shocking might be, was probably goaltending with Racine. I would have said that Colgate's weak link was their 6-on-6 efficiency. They're a great team. In the middle of the field, they're awesome. Ride, chaos, but I didn't know about could they hold up 6-on-6. This is the outlier. Racine was the weak link in that game. Colgate actually, I thought, played really well 6-on-6. Penn State still won. Going to faceoffs, hey man, that Penn State faceoff guy was it Reed Gills, he's won like 80% 2 weeks in a row. Helps a lot. Georgetown Duke's tricky. I didn't know if you could maybe argue the offense on both sides. I said Georgetown's offense versus Duke's clearing. Duke failed 3 clears, but Georgetown's offense was awesome. So, yeah. Ohio State, Notre Dame. Ohio State, I would have said if they had a weak link, it might have been face-off. Offense, pretty good. Defense, great. Goalie, great. Maybe face-off. Notre Dame, it was those long scoring droughts where their offense is getting a funk. The weaker link, Ohio State's face-off play. Notre Dame won. Maryland Air Force, I probably would have said Maryland's offense versus Air Force's defense. Air Force's defense was the weaker link there. Syracuse, Harvard. Syracuse's discipline, Harvard at face-off. Close. Really close, but in the end, Harvard's face-off play. And then at the end, Cornell, Albany. I would have said Cornell's weak link was their defense. Albany's weak link, as I just mentioned, their face-off. That was the result there. Cornell's defense played pretty well. Albany's face-off. Cornell won 60% of the face-offs. So I think those are about right. In the end, 7 out of 8. The team with the weaker link, the team that had their weak link perform the weakest lost. And I still, this is my vibe. All of these teams that are left have played great games this year. Or have won terrific units. Cornell has their offense. Richmond's defense is great. Syracuse has their offense very good. They have John Mullen at the faceoff dot. That's their biggest strength. Princeton has their offense. Great goalie, Pokratic. Penn State's got now maybe faceoff potentially the way it's going, and a really good offense. Notre Dame has great faceoff play, pretty well rounded overall. Maryland's got that great defense. Georgetown has a very good defense. All these teams have played great at some point in time. I still feel like in this game, what I'm looking at is, all right, your weakness, how well is it going to play? How well is that thing that you've kind of been struggling with? Are they going to rise to the occasion? So for these matchups, I look at it as Cornell's defense and Richmond. I think they've maybe answered the question about the late game execution. What I'm going to look at for Richmond in this one is Richmond's attack unit. Last week, Richmond was able to get by with almost all of their scoring coming from a lot of their scoring coming from their midfield. Aiden O'Neill did not have a point for Richmond in that game. And Lucas Littlejohn did have 4 goals, and Max Merkinger had 2 goals and assists. But, a lot of production from their midfield. 2 goals from Creo, 2 goals from Packard, 2 goals from Lucas Olsen, Picard with a goal. Can O'Neill in particular, he is the leader in assists. He's second on the team in goals, second in points. He's the guy who's going to get the top matchup. I don't know if Richmond can get a double bagel again and get through. I think they're going to need a little bit more. Syracuse-Princeton, I think it's pretty straightforward. Syracuse's discipline, the penalties against that Princeton offense. For Princeton, we're talking about all your faceoffs. How can their faceoff unit play against John Mullen? Penn State, again, I think it's goaltending. Frasian had, 5 saves? You're not beating Notre Dame with 5 saves. Conversely, Notre Dame, the scoring droughts. Great against Ohio State, but what if we get the Notre Dame we saw against Cuse or the Notre Dame in the first half against Carolina? Against the Penn State team they're not going to dominate faceoffs the way they did against Ohio State. And then lastly, for Maryland and Georgetown, I'm going to say Maryland's offense and Georgetown's goaltending. Those are the weak links kind of I see. And I think I get the vibe that's going to decide the game. I think if Princeton wins faceoffs, Princeton's going to beat Syracuse. I think that's good. If Jack Frasian makes 15 saves, I think Penn State beats Notre Dame. Maybe I'm less sure on that, but if Cornell's defense plays well for 3 weeks, they're going to win the national championship. And Cornell might be the one team that's a little, maybe an exception to this rule is do they have the offense that's good enough to just overpower everything? Everybody else, I think your best unit is good. I don't think it's going to get you to champion. I don't think you're going to be able to ride that to championship weekend, or to the championship, I should say. I think you're going to need the bottom portion of the roster to really rise up.
I'm interested about the rematch with Cornell and Richmond, just because, Richmond obviously was at home and they jumped out to such a strong start with 6-1 lead after the first quarter. Cornell turned around, scored 6 of their own in the second, and, ended up winning by 1. But Little John, O'Neal, maybe not stellar games, but still came through with 4 and 3 points respectively. Can they increase that a little bit more? Just as we always say, it's just like the gravitational pull. If you can just draw that attention, just frees up the teammates so much more, and then it just that need of space that they you have to be able to get a clean shot off. Would be interested to see how long Richmond can make this run. Like just because maybe this is the year. Like just the way they kind of just took care of business with Carolina, and there's like a little bit of a threat. Carolina was always there. It felt like Richmond was just like, yeah, we're not gonna settle for like a 1-goal lead or 2-goal. They just kept attacking, and at the same time, like use the clock. There was one of probably the smartest end of game I've ever seen from Richmond. Just just with so many like near misses, close like losses that where they had the victory in hand, or not able to execute when they go to overtime. Like it just felt like I don't want to be patronizing or anything, but yeah, like a growing up. We just kind of see them grow up in real time in front of us with that win. I just wonder how much that kind of carries over into this week. Regarding Syracuse, I just wonder how McCool's going to handle that that pressure that's going to come from that Princeton offense, because I think they're going to still have pretty good day at the dot, but like who knows if Princeton continues on with this better face-off play. If they could replicate even 3/4 of what they did against Towson, just get themselves like a 60-40 or 45-55 split in face-off. Like, I think they're going to be kind of a good day for them. But I think if McCool has a 12 goals allowed, 5 saves, like Cuse could have they could have a dominant face-off day, and I don't think they're going to be able to catch up.
No, yeah, they need better from him in that game, and I think they'll get it. I don't. I think McMeekin is. I don't think he's a bad face-off guy, but there is a big disparity in his face-off results. When you there is a correlation between the better the face-off opponent and the worse he plays. John Mullen's 3rd in the country in adjusted face-off percentage. McMeekin has played 3 of the top 10 in face-off this year. UNC went 6 of 17. Penn State went 6 of 20. 2 games against Cornell, he went 24 of 54. Combined, that's 39.5%. Against Rutgers, Maryland, and Duke, who are 12th, 16th, and 20th in face-off percentage, he went 17 of 46. Against top 20 face-off teams, he's 33.5%. I think, has he played better? Yes, but I mean, it's almost like later in the year, it was like, hey, McMeekin's numbers are going up, and it's like they played worse teams in terms of face-offs. And now, listen, face-off styles make fights. We've seen it before. Remember all those years Syracuse would just dominate Petey LaSalle? Like Falp always had his number. You never know. I would like to say that he's gotten confidence from playing better. But I saw against Cornell, even after that good run, Cascading kind of had his number again. So I think Cuse is going to win at least 60% of the faceoffs in this game. Now, that, as we've seen, that does not mean that Syracuse won 80% of the faceoffs twice against Harvard, and they lost by 1 and they won by 1 in overtime. I think McCool does certainly. I think he'll be better, but it's a big one. You never know with these goalies in the tournament, especially younger goalies. I just go back and forth with this one. I really the face-off goal. I really do think this is maybe the one where it gets Princeton. On the other hand, for Syracuse, Princeton will bury you if you give Princeton the chance to. Syracuse handed Harvard the shovel, and Harvard couldn't dig them deep enough. If you hand Princeton the shovel, Princeton will bury you because Princeton can play at different speeds. Princeton can play in different games. Princeton is a physical and athletic team. Harvard is incredibly skilled. I did think their shorties played great in the first half, at least. Princeton's a different cat. Like they have athletes and they have a physicality to them that if Syracuse gives Princeton the chance, they're going to bury it. I think Princeton will. They're going to get great goaltending play from Craddock, I imagine, and I think they'll put that game away. They have NCAA tournament experience, don't know how to put it away, and that's my thing with Cuse is Cuse will give you the shovel sometimes, man. They'll just give you the chance to put them away, and rivalry game, Long Island, Ryan McDonald in the house. What does Cuse take penalties again? Do they give Princeton? Do they give Princeton the shovel? You know, I think that's true. I think that's what makes this the best of these four games. One, you could argue it's the most evenly matched, but two, could you really see this being the day that Princeton just gets caved in on faceoffs? Yes, 100%. Could this also be a day where Syracuse's propensity to sometimes dig their own grave finally be their undoing? Also, yes. I think both are eminent possibilities. And I don't know. I'm excited for this one. I think this is going to be absolute chaos. And I mean, it just feels, again, maybe you worry, so much anticipation, hype. But I don't think Cuse is never out of a game. They have the face-off play, they have the offense. They'll have probably the crowd advantage. They're not out of it if they get behind. And Princeton, if they can get string some faceoffs together, and with that offense, I think Cuse's shorties need to probably have their best game of the year because that Princeton midfield is, that group is a load to handle. Tucker Wade is he probably draws the pole, you'd say. But then this is where Princeton gets so hard matchup wise. You gotta pull Mackesy, you gotta pull Kabiri, you gotta pull Colin Burns. Do you pull Palumbo or Wade? And either one of them, either one of them is too good for a shorty. Whoever gets that matchup for Cuse, Carter Rice is very good for Cuse. Sam English is probably against his old team is probably going to log a lot of minutes. I would imagine he might get a bunch of shifts on it, but that's where Princeton gets difficult matchup wise. On the flip side, Princeton shorties have been. I don't think they're as good defensively as they're on the middle of the field. I think the middle of the field they're great. Jack Screen especially. I don't know if they're as good defensively. Harvard's shorties did have success against Cuse. Can Prince shorties do that? It's such a tough matchup, but I just think Princeton's the more consistent team. I think they maintain a higher level of play throughout the game. I love that coaching staff has done such a great job all year long. Mitchell, with the offense, the way they spaced the ball. The way they shot the ball against Towson was incredible. Madeline and Hirsch do a great job with the goalies. I think I think ultimately I'll go with I ride with Princeton just because I think they just, in a game that I expect to be chaotic, I just think they maintain a higher level of play throughout. I just wonder if with Cuse, I kind of wonder about what happens if Cuse drops off. With Princeton, I feel like, again, face-offs is the question because they could just go a long period of time without the ball. But I don't necessarily worry about Princeton's low. I think is still pretty high. I feel like we've seen that all year. Even when Princeton's at their kind of B game, they still do enough. But yeah, I mean, this game's gonna be awesome.
Sent you a video. It's that guy flipping on another fat guy meme, and that's what I was thinking of Georgetown after just a stellar first round upset, just taking down Duke at their reward in the Elite Eight round, like maybe an unexpected trip to the Final Four. A Virginia substitute in that a team that elevates their play in this round, probably above even Virginia to an extent. Virginia has to beat, when they come at you. Maryland's maybe not as high in terms of getting right to the line in terms of hitting, but in terms of focus,
Maryland plays their best game of the year in this round. So if you're the opponent, it's like, all right, are you going to beat Maryland when Maryland's at their best? That's what you got to do. You're not going to get Maryland. Yeah, we've seen Maryland sometimes this year when they're not at their best, and maybe they're gettable. That's not going to be Maryland this weekend. You're going to get the best Maryland team possible this weekend. Can you beat that?
Now, I'm not saying Georgetown is going to beat them, but the experience of having played, because playing a Maryland or Virginia in the Elite, it's just like a chance, just you happen to be, in the same bracket in the pool and playing them. So having that experience, that learning experience against Virginia in 2021, and then come back in 2023, losing, but playing significantly better than they did against the Cavs 2 years prior. I didn't play either of Cavs or Maryland team last year, obviously, in the air, but
they played the next closest.
Another one up there. It's like their name's like the newest version of that, but obviously with that back to back. But it's just and the way that they're playing it off, it's a potentially really interesting game. Maybe not the most exciting. I think that Princeton Syracuse just with the teams and the setting that could be. But this having being right in the region where both fan bases are, Georgetown just kind of always being on the cusp, really having a pretty nice. Aiden pops off like he has been.
He's not. So this is where the question is. You know what Maryland's going to do. Maryland is not going to let Aiden Carroll score 6 goals. So what's next? That's the question. I'm not saying Georgetown cannot win this game. I'm saying that Georgetown winning this game is not Aiden Carroll scoring 7 goals. That's not happening.
For sure.
So for Georgetown, it's all right.
Can he beat his guy, which I think his attention may cause us, if they can get this to that slot. If he can beat his guy with picks and stuff like that,
they're going. Maryland's entire thing is going to be, okay, this guy's gone. He's off the chessboard. That's Maryland's defense. Maryland's defense.
We're gonna that's the if.
We are taking the head. So what's next if you're Georgetown? That's where it's that's the difficulty for Georgetown winning this game is, again, I'm not saying Georgetown can. I think they can win the game. It's, can you beat Maryland at their best? And where do you get your offense from? It's not, Aiden Carroll's not scoring 6 goals in this game.
Can Georgetown win a rock fight?
Yeah, I think that's where it has to be. Is I think it probably it kind of has to be what Rutgers did to Maryland. Just a total
slug it out.
Get a lead. Ross Prince has to play great. You shut Maryland's offense down, force them into turnovers. That's probably
for sure. Harvard Crimson. It's
get Maryland into making turnovers, get Maryland into trying to force the ball inside, and just kind of play for high percentage plays than maybe, or low percentage plays, I should say, rather. That's what it kind of has to be. The question with that becomes, and this is where I went with kind of the weak link. Anderson Moore last week against Duke, 9 saves out of 21, 2 goals at the end of the half that were kind of shaky. If you want to do the rock fight, he's got to be great.
Yeah.
Can he outplay Big Mac? That's where you're going to need. You're going to need everyone on Georgetown's going to have to keep being elevated because it's just going to go up a level. And yeah, I think it's got to be rock fight. Georgetown has shot the ball a lot better lately. You're going to need, can you maintain that shooting against Maryland's defense? They shot great in the Big East tournament. The Villanova game, they shot something like it's saying close to 50%, I think. Pretty good against Duke, 35%. You got to keep that going. It's got to be the best of what Georgetown's done lately, and a little bit more, even if they're gonna pull it out. Because Maryland's gonna be Maryland. They're gonna bring their A game. They're going to take away Aiden Carroll off the board. You figure McNaney's going to have a strong game. And so they're going to make it really tough to score. Offensively, they're going to try whatever advantage they think they can find in the scouting report. That's what they're going to look at. And I wonder, Georgetown polls are really good. Ty Banks is great. I wonder who he matches up with. Does he get Eric Spanos, who had a great game against Air Force? Braden Irks. I think Georgetown's probably going to try and pressure Irksa and force him into turnovers. That's what I would see. I think Maryland probably goes for Maryland does a great job on their offensive works of avoiding the bad matchup and just saying we're going to find the weak link. We're going to try and target that. So I think if Maryland's midfield plays well in this game, I think Maryland's going to. I think Georgetown will probably try and take away Maryland's attack. Can their shorties hold up on the Maryland midfield? Maryland's midfield plays well. The ball will start spinning and they'll have success. So I think Georgetown can win this game. The path to victory probably has to be a rock fight. And the questions in a rock fight can be, can your goalie outplay McNaney? Georgetown's defense be better than Maryland's defense? We'll see. Those are kind of the questions with that. Yeah, that's the path for Georgetown. It's Georgetown's offense is playing better. Georgetown's offense is playing better. The question is that really? Are you going to score? Are they going to score on Maryland anyway? I don't know because it's been driven by Bayman and Carroll. The Bayman part is Bayman's also played really well in addition to Carroll, and Bayman has good foot speed. If Maryland puts Schaller on Carroll, Maryland's next defenders are not as fast in Canfield and Burles. Could that be an element for Georgetown to maybe try and exploit? But like what they with Carroll, the way he's played, Maryland's not going to let him score 6 goals. That's how Maryland's offense, or Maryland's defense rather, approaches it. So I think it'd be a good game. I don't know that Georgetown, the path is necessarily there the same way it's been the last couple of weeks.
Any thoughts about the last game, Notre Dame and Penn State?
It's the first game Sunday, I assume.
Oh, I'm sorry, of our
yeah.
weakest link discussion. I was just going.
I think this game is super interesting because I think the range of possibilities is really wide. If you told me Notre Dame wins this game by like 7 goals, or Notre Dame wins like they did against Ohio State 15-6, I wouldn't be shocked. I think Notre Dame could win this game by a lot. But I also could see if Penn State can if Frasian can be the Frasian we know, and Penn State continues winning faceoffs the way they have been, I think they've got the pieces offensively to. Light's going to go with Trainer, but you still got Lehman, and you've got Amon and Aquino at that midfield. I think those guys could put up some points especially if they get a diet of faceoffs. And Notre Dame's offense, like Penn State's weakness is their shorties. Notre Dame's midfield, when Notre Dame's offense goes slow, it's that midfield. It's they don't have the juice from the mid. A lot has to go on Chris Kavanaugh. They don't have the juice from the midfield in the way that they have in the past. Maybe they're not able to exploit the issues that Penn State can have as much. So Penn State wins faceoffs, gets saves. I think they've got the offense to make some things happen. And I think maybe defensively they can hold, obviously if they get saved. So I can see there's just a wide variety thing I can see in this game. I can really see Penn State pulling this one out in kind of a classic Penn State fashion. Tamskin, could the zone play? I don't know if the zone will work against Notre Dame. Notre Dame doesn't move the ball as well as they have in the past. Like the zone against Notre Dame the last years, I think would have probably been a disaster. But it can maybe work here and force them to hit outside shots. See if they throw a ring one. So yeah, I just think there's a wide. That's why I'm really excited to see this one in person. I think the range of outcomes here. I think is which of these when these two teams have been at their best. It was Penn State we saw against late in that game against Cornell. We've seen Penn State early in the season played really well. Notre Dame we saw last week. I think these can beat Final Four teams when they play at their best. Do we get that on Saturday? I think it's an interesting question. So yeah, I'm very interested in this. This might be I think Hughes Princeton is like the game that's most most anticipated game for all the reasons. But in terms of the game I'm most interested in, I think it might be this one.
Well, I think it's like a chance for Penn State to quietly get in the upper echelon. If they win this game, that means only 3 Final Fours in the last 6 tournaments. These are the only other teams that can have that claim since 2019, Jake. The
Maryland,
Terps.
Virginia?
Exactly.
Dude.
If Notre Dame gets it this year, they'll be their 3rd Final Four. Obviously, they won the last 2 titles. Virginia, title, 1921, quarterfinal, 2022, semis, 2023, 2024. Duke, semi, runner-up in 2023. Only made the quarters last year, didn't make the tournament in 2022, but they qualified under that. And then potentially Penn State with, kind of like the quietest of the bunch, probably, the title in that run, Maryland, Virginia, and Notre Dame have one. Duke doesn't, but,
This gets them to a different stratosphere.
That's it. I think that puts Rams in a different light.
You move into a different neck of the woods, like a different neighborhood, if you win this game. Now, and then at that point, really the conversation just becomes the same conversation that's kind of followed Jeff Tambroni for 15 years, which is that he's at the top of a list you don't want to be on, especially with Corrigan winning the title now. But no, they're in a different neck of the woods if they win this game.
Zip code. Yeah. That was expecting Final Four, but that's going to be their kind of goal now.
I think yes. I think if they win this game, this is still a young. This is not like 2019. Well, 2019 they had the whole team coming back, so that's a little different. But it was still, you knew that the 2019 one was a great team. We made the championship weekend with a great team. See, I keep getting this kind of distinction. Do you get to championship weekend with a great team, or do you get a championship weekend because you're a great program? This would be the one where, like 2019, they got there because they had a great team.
That was like a cultural movement, 2019. Just the way they played, like
it was a rock show. It was.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like following like that. Because everything about that was just. I don't know if I'll ever see anything like that again. They weren't on TV or like streaming the first 3 weeks. So it was like a word of mouth. Like it was like you're just like hearing whispers like Penn State scored 25 today. Like
they're talking about Bo Jackson in high school or something. Like hey, come on, rock through 3 bars. Like,
it was. You could have told me anything about that, and I kind of would have believed it.
that sounds about right.
And then you actually saw it, and because they lost that game to Yale, when TD went well, but even still in defeat, like Ament scored a goal on fake where he just hit him with like the finalizer move by the cage to like make it a 1-goal game. It's like, oh, holy shit! Like this thing's even in defeat. It was the way that they, despite losing the fans and everything. Yeah, it was a rock show. 2023 was like a great story. They went from 3 wins to the Final Four. It's kind of like a comeback year.
Lost controversially.
If this Penn State team, they got to play again. If this Penn State team makes it, it's just Penn State making the Final Four. That's it. There's no great story behind it. There's no narrative to it. It's just, oh, hey, Penn State made the Final Four again. I mean, like, they haven't really been talked about a lot this year. And some of that's for reason, like, they don't have, again, we talk about, can you play the best game of your season in the quarterfinal? Penn State's best game was against, I don't know what Penn State, that's the thing with Penn, and I think that's part, I guess, what makes Penn State intriguing is, I think we could either look back at them and be like, oh, they were a decent team. They were good. They were a really good team that made the quarterfinals and they just hit their level. They didn't really beat anybody better than them this year, aside from that Cornell game. They beat everybody worse than them. Then they just lost their name. Or it could be this team really peaks at the right time. And if that's the case, could they then do it against Cornell again? And so, yeah, that's where it's different. If Notre Dame makes the Final Four this year, yes, it's the three-peat. That's kind of the story. But Notre Dame's made the Final Four a bunch. That's what they expect. Once you start making the Final Four, when it's just another good team, like what Maryland's done for so often, and where it's just that's just the Maryland team that made the Final Four. I don't. Obviously, Maryland has the Rambo team and they have the Bernhard Wisconsin teams, but then there's just 7-8 other teams that just made the Final Four. That's when it's different, and that's why, I think you're right for Penn State. This is huge. Is if they make this one with just this team, no Ament, no kind of underdog sort of thing in Philly.
Get to Philly to play in the link.
You're not going to Philly this time.
Yeah,
this is you just made the Final Four because you beat Notre Dame.
Yeah. So
it'd be huge,
sure.
And then
absolutely, no, I love that
for Notre Dame. I mean, it's Notre Dame. It's just another week. They've done this. What's this? Going for 10 tournament wins in a row. That's something pretty. Not many teams have won 10 straight tournament games. You're into rare air. If you can do that.
Yeah, even the back-to-back Princeton team. I think maybe they won 10 all 3.
So Virginia won 9. They won 2019, 21, and then they got to the quarterfinals in 22. Cuse lost in the first round in 2010. And then, so Princeton won 96. They won 3. 97, they won 3. 98, they won 3. Then
lost in round 12. In
99, they lost in the first round.
So that would be it. They won 9. They could break a record.
Let's see. Who's the other record? Syracuse. Syracuse in 91 won 2. So Syracuse won 88. They won 3. 89. They won 3. 90. They won 3. And they won 2. So Cuse won 11.
We're gonna count the vacated.
Do they have the trophy?
somewhere. It's some basement in upstate New York.
It's in the who did Roy Simmons buy the car for?
One of the gates, right?
Yeah, it's in the Gates basement. So yeah, 10 that's second. Or well, didn't Carolina win
An
3?
untainted run, Hopkins 3 in a row, and then a runner-up in 81.
So that's 11. Yeah. So 11 is the record. So Notre Dame, if they win, will break the record. Yeah, I mean, look, they won 3. This is the best 3 people.
If they went 3 in a row, they have a 12. Oh,
And this, yeah, 12.
do quick pick'ems. Or we just have our brackets as pick'ems.
Yeah, no, we can do it. I think Cornell beats Richmond. But man, I think Richmond runs them close. I think this game's close. I don't think it's a blowout. I think maybe Cornell hits the accelerator in the fourth quarter, maybe. But look, man, I saw the first sign really with Cornell. Like I talk about Cornell's defense, like they're shorties. I didn't love the way they play. The first sign that's me was that Richmond game. Richmond hunted Cornell shorties early in that game, and they got a lot of success dodging from up to high wing dodges, just going at them. Cornell gave them space, and that's some Cornell. They're not. It cannot be passive. It's like, there's Cole Kubelik, who's like offensive lineman, has a great quote. Like, pass protection is not passive. Short stick defensive midfield defense cannot be passive. You gotta be on those guys. And Cornell's too often with Cornell's teammates, I just don't see that. I went at Richmond. I think that's going to be Richmond. And I'm sure Cornell knows it too. But like with Richmond, that's what they're looking at. That was our success in this game. CJ Kirst, one of his 2 worst games of the year was against Richmond. He had 3 goals and an assist. I mean, that's CJ Kirst in 2025, but could they maybe do it to him again? Look, you hold CJ Kirst. If you hold CJ Kirst to 3 goals, if I told you right now CJ Kirst has 3 goals, would the results on when we get the final score is, Cornell wins by a maximum of what if CJ Kirst has 3 goals?
Could be a maximum of 6 if he's finding people and stuff like that. No, I'm just like, if he's got 3 goals but like 5 assists, 4 assists, like because you're overly emphasizing him.
That's the thing, though. He doesn't really. That's the difference with him is that he's not going to pass it. If you're taking him away, he's just going to go play off ball. And then it becomes about like Goldstein and Long. Like he's not Pat Spencer, where if you put too much, or Jeff T, where you put too much attention on him, he's gonna beat you. What he's gonna do is just, okay, I'm not succeed. I'm just gonna go play off ball. Kind of like Bernhardt did. It's gonna be the team offense because like if you look, he's got 30 assists this year, which is very good, but he has 2 games this year with more than 3 assists. The Hobart game where he had 6 and 6. And then the Yale game where he had 3 and 6. Yeah, Yale just. Well, what am I gonna say about Yale? He doesn't really rack up a lot of assists generally, and that's 12 of his 30 right there in 2 games. What he does so well is, and that's why it makes it so hard to take him away, is that he just goes and plays off ball. He just sits on the crease, or he plays on the wing. He's never going to force it. This is insane, dude. He has 18 turnovers this year. 30 assists to 18 turnovers. Like, look, man, he may not have a lot of assists. He don't turn the ball over. He's shooting 48%.
That's the ball.
I mean, it's just this is the perfect. This might be the stat of the season. CJ Kirst has 30 ground balls and 18 turnovers, and he has 15 caused turnovers. He almost has as many caused turnovers as turnovers himself. Not even close. He's going to score 8. He might score 80 goals this year. He might have 80 goals by the end of the weekend. But yeah, like you look at the games this year, 3 goals against Richmond, 1 assist. 1 goal Cornell win. 2 goals against Penn State, 1 assist. Cornell loss. 2 goals and 3 assists against Penn, and that game was they won that one 15-5, dominant win. 2 goals, 1 assist against Dartmouth. That game was Cornell against Dartmouth that was one of their competitive games, 10-8. Generally, if you told me he has 3 goals, I'm not saying Cornell's going to lose. I'm going to say I think it's a close game. Like, I don't think they're going to win by 6. I think if you told me Richmond holds CJ Crosse to 3 goals or less, I think that game is decided by maximum 2 goals either way. That's kind of what it's seen. Now, if you told me CJ Crosse had 6 goals, I'm going to say, like, that's and he has 6 goals, they're going to win. So, I think this was close. I'm going to go Cornell. I think it's close. I'm going to pick Princeton over Cuse. I just don't. I could change my mind on this one 5 more times for the other week. I think Princeton's a little bit better. I think Princeton's better. I know faceoffs is 100%. I just think Princeton's a better team. Notre Dame, Penn State, I'm going to take Notre Dame. I just worry about Frassian. I haven't seen him play the level we expect this year. And I think that's their undoing. And I think Notre Dame's peaking at the right time. But again, could I see Penn State winning? Yes. Maryland, Georgetown, I'm going to take Maryland. Georgetown's got to get to a different level. And look, at some point, is it going to happen? I think yes. I do believe eventually they're going to break through. I just don't know if it's against the Maryland team that I think is going to. I just think the way Georgetown's won games lately with this offense, I don't see that happening because I think Maryland's going to take Carroll away. And then if it comes down to a rock fight, I just trust McNaney more than I trust Anderson more. Trust Maryland's defense a little more. So I'm going to go Maryland. So there you go. Cornell, I'm going to stick with what my Final Four was. Nothing has moved me off of my picks, basically, my bracket. I had Cornell, Notre Dame, Princeton, and Maryland. I still think that's what it's going to be. Would I be shocked if I would not? Here's what I'll say. That's what I think makes it's going to be a great quarterfinal. I would not be shocked if Georgetown being Maryland would maybe shock me a little bit. But it'd be more of a surprise than a shock, is what I'll say. More of a surprise. It would very surprise me, but it would be more of a surprise. I think all 4 of the underdogs can win. Am I picking them? No, though I don't know what the Princeton-Syracuse line is, but I'm not picking them. But I would not be shocked. But I'm going to stick with what I had: Cornell, Notre Dame, Princeton, Maryland.
That was also my preseason Final Four. Notre
Really?
Dame, Princeton, Maryland, and Cornell.
How about it?
So, Jake, I'm going to stick with them. Similar to yours.
What was mine?
You have Cornell winning, but we have the same exact Final Four participants.
How about that?
I have Notre Dame winning,
Wow.
but Rye also pretty much nailed it. Cornell winning, Maryland, he just has Virginia in there. Adam also pretty much nailed it, but he has Hopkins as a Final Four with Notre Dame winning.
R.I.P. in peace.
So neither of them have Princeton. They have, Hopkins or Virginia as the 4th team.
Look at us. Who would have thought? Us.
I do think that Maryland Georgetown game could be really interesting. Probably more the one surprise if there is an upset that we want to be kind of like, oh wow, they pulled it off. Yeah, everything else like Syracuse should show up to play. Richmond, learn how to get a lead on Cornell and hold it. Penn State could just show their program strength and get to a 3rd Final Four in 6 tournaments. So, but yeah, the Hoyas do it against the Terps against Tillman in the money round. That would be a surprise. So, pick 'em should be an amazing weekend. Enjoy being there live.
I will. We'll do this before we go. Favorite quarterfinal games, memories?
Hopkins over Cuse, 2015. That was great.
That was Annapolis. That was Annapolis, wasn't it?
That's what I was thinking of when of the Cuse Maryland was Annapolis. Yeah, that was definitely Annapolis. Just a great scene, great game. One of Petro's last moments. Love the the post game where they were talking about Brown shooting with the up one, and then he was like, "We actually needed that goal."
We got one more.
Absolutely love that. I'm trying to think. Elite Eight moments. I mean, just the spectacle of it, the Virginia Georgetown game, just of like a manifestation of what we mean by like the money round and like leveling up and the difference between being a great team and having a wonderful season, regular season, and what Virginia turns into when they
I'll never.
Can we?
Everything about
the 2019 the the usurper win. Just again the spectacle, just this everyone screaming at the TV like, "What are you talking about? It was obviously not a goal." Just the way it's just kind of just
everything about that Virginia Georgetown game. Like, there's several moments that I just distinctively. There's very few games where I distinctively remember actual things that happened, and all those came like the first 5 minutes of the game. James Riley just getting destroyed on the sideline. I mean, like,
hit with the ball, like,
and Georgetown, he gets hit, and Georgetown goes man up, and your first reaction feels like, oh well, they better score like 3 times on this man up because he's probably out of the game. And then on the man up, you're watching Georgetown. It was like a slow moving, just like disaster. I mean, it's like, oh man, this doesn't look good. Like they look kind of rough. And then the biggest one of all was the Georgetown player takes a shot at the top of the box, and it literally goes into the Virginia guy's stick. And I think Virginia goes right down and scores after that. And you're like, oh my god! Like the first 5 minutes game, this is bad. It's just vivid.
It was something.
Yes, it was a scene. You just vividly remember it. That whole one with that one, and then continue. You go.
No, I was just saying, it reminded me of the Hopkins Maryland game where I was just like, oh yeah, I was part of history, Jake. It was a great day to be a Hopkins fan, but it was a great, it's part of a momentous history tour. The Maryland Notre Dame game, I was trying to remember that one. The overtime at Notre Dame Stadium. It's also the Duke Loyola game. That was also overtime, 1-goal game. That was all. That was that magical year with North Carolina, Rutgers.
Carolina Rutgers was.
That was a war. That was just like. I remember Chris Gray just like chopping off Curse's hand, and like the rest were like, yeah, no blood, no foul.
I don't know that I've ever found myself rooting for another like a non-tip than I felt rooting for Rutgers in that game. And Cheryl Mullen scores a big goal. Sherilyn Beatty scores a backhand goal, and you're like, holy crap, this is gonna happen. And they got so close. And then Carolina just rode them down. Chris Gray. I mean, that was Carolina guys just hatcheting guys on the midfield line.
It's just absolutely brutal. Those are the big ones that come up. I mean, I know a lot of infamous ones, like late era Petra. Hopkins game, that Notre Dame game.
Those are first round games.
Oh, sorry. The Duke one was a second round.
There was the Duke one in the quarterfinal was 2018 where they got. Honestly, that one also had it. They got down big and then they came back kind of a fake comeback.
Yeah.
What do I got? I have obviously as a Maryland fan, the 2011 Grant Catalino beat Cuse. That was Modesto. But honestly, probably maybe 2013. That was Desco's last great team. Was that 2011 team? They were they lost one game before the tournament. 2012, beating Hopkins in the quarterfinals at Annapolis. That was a great day. My sister got married that day. I always kind of remember it. So that was pretty That was classic one. Kind of the birth of the Tillman quarterfinal was that game. I mean, both of those, the Syracuse and the second one. Just some other kind of low key ones. Denver, Carolina in the court in 2013 was at Lucas Oil. Denver came way back in the second half to win that one. I think for a lot of people, theirs would be the Notre Dame Albany game at Hempstead. That's one of the you talk. I mean, when you talk about games that felt larger than life, that was one. There's the seesaw of that one was unbelievable. More recent ones, that entire 2021 weekend was just something else. The Penn Yale game in 19, the garbage bag floating on the field. It was the third.
The Penn player that stood over the Yale player like the Iverson step over.
Yeah. It was the third game those teams had played that year. I mean, it felt like a heavyweight fight, 15 rounds. I just felt so hard done for Penn. They had already beaten Yale twice, and then got asked, "Hey, go beat them one more time in the quarterfinals." It was just, I mean, that there's a long history of the NCAA kind of, you could argue, gypping the Ivy League in the tournament. That one is, I would say, near the top. And then what other ones do we? Yeah, those are kind of the ones I look at. Last year being there for Hopkins, Virginia, I mean, that was just an epic struggle. There's some good ones if you go way back. The 2006, I think, the UMass Dino's last game at Hofstra, when they lost to UMass in the quarterfinals, 11-10. That's an epic game. So there's just a lot of good ones. And then also, again, Maryland fan, be remiss, the game last year against Duke. That's probably in my top 5 Maryland wins under Tillman. Probably that game.
I was just going through the page for each year for the tournament, and 2002 year was really good in terms of the spread of the final scores. Each game was a 1-goal game. Hopkins beat UMass in overtime, but everything else, Princeton, Georgetown, Princeton won that by 1. Virginia Cornell, Virginia won that by 1, 11-10, and Chiefs beat Duke that year by 1, 10-9, 14-13, Princeton, Georgetown. So, of
2019, I would say the best ones I can remember are 2021, which did have Virginia, Georgetown, but other than that was 3 1-goal games, and 2 in overtime. 3 in overtime. All of those, Maryland, Notre Dame, Loyola, Duke, Carolina, Rutgers went to overtime.
Yeah, those were
2019. Obviously, I mean, overtime, Maryland, Virginia, Notre Dame, Duke.
3 overtimes in that year, too.
3 overtimes in the ultra was Penn State, Loyola, which that Penn State, Loyola game was. It was
much. That was we didn't see that game. Also, just going to your theme of Penn State not being shown on TV, because there's the blackout. Penn State was up 10, and then all of a sudden it was Loyola got it close, and joined back to the program.
That was that was a football game basically. It was 21-14 or whatever, and it was Spencer and Ament. Mac O'Keefe scored 9 goals or something in that game. So 2019, 2019 and 2021 are the last year was pretty good too. But those are the 2 main ones. Yeah, I think about. Well, I'm excited for this. So I mean, yeah, we're always excited for this weekend. It's the weekend. So, and we'll be.
You and Jake are going to have a good time.
100%. Yeah. We'll be back live Saturday on YouTube after We'll see. I mean, look, if Syracuse wins, we might just tell Ryan to do it live. Just
do mine.
if not, we might, or depending on how he's feeling. It is a pretty quick trek home for him, I know, from Hempstead to back to Levittown. So that one we should be live. When will the game end? Probably 5. Probably be live. Probably no 6ish, maybe plan for, but could be a little earlier. And then also Sunday, planning on it as well. I will be back from Annapolis probably takes me like 30 minutes, I think. So again, 6:15, 6:30 maybe. Look in the range for that one. But we're playing that. So subscribe on YouTube. We're closing in on 100 subscribers. So thank you guys. Subscribe. A lot of great support. A lot of you guys have been watching the last couple weeks, interacting in the chat and liking the video. So we appreciate that. So if you're not already subscribed, go to the Crosse Commission on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, turn notifications on, so you'll know when we go live on Saturday and Sunday. And me and Safe will be back here preview the Final Four next week. And I think Ryan also subscribe to the Crosse Commission on YouTube, because I think Ryan he's kind of feeling a bit under the weather, so he couldn't be on tonight. He might upload a video with his Final Four predictions. So look out for that. All right.
Jake, always a pleasure.
Indeed, brother. All right. Stay hydrated, folks. It's going to be warm out there this weekend. Thank you then for president. See you out there.